The Dallas Stars had themselves a very interesting Thursday before their game in Chicago. It becomes news on social media that they were going to be trading for Blackhawks forward Max Domi for a pretty good deal, if you ask me. And then the Stars would go on to pick up a huge regulation win against the Blackhawks at the United Center. We'll talk about the win and the acquisition of Max Domi and what it means for the Stars on today's episode of the Locked On Stars podcast.
Your Locked On Stars, your daily podcast on the Dallas Stars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Bing bong.
Howdy, Stars fans. Welcome back to the Locked On Stars podcast, the only daily podcast covering the Dallas Stars, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Dane Lewis, your local expert on all things Dallas Stars hockey, coming to you on this Friday, March 3rd. Happy NHL trade deadline day to everyone out there. Although I feel like the majority of the big trades have already gone down, but still, I'm sure some interesting moves still to be made today. Thank you for tuning in, for stopping by today, whether this is your first time here and you've just now found us, or you've been listening for quite some time. Thank you for stopping in and making us your first listen of the day. And always be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube, the follow button on your favorite podcasting platform. We're free and available no matter where or how you may choose to listen to the show. And as I've said, and at the time of recording this, the trade technically still not official, but a ton of credible sources, Elliot Friedman, Frank Saravalli of Daily Faceoff, basically saying that it's a deal that's just taking a little bit of time, but that it seems inevitable that Max Domi will be heading to Dallas to become the newest member of the Stars, along with AHL goaltender Dylan Wells. We'll talk about him a little bit later on in the episode when we get to, the total trade overall, the total package, things of that nature. And in return, the Dallas Stars will be sending a second-round pick as well as their own AHL goaltender, but a guy who is a legend in the Dallas community for what he did in 2020. Anton Khudobin will also be going back to Chicago, and no salary will be retained in this situation. But before we get into the details of the trade and things of that nature, it's a big deal, certainly worth discussing. We also do need to discuss the game that the Stars played on Thursday night, night 2 of a back-to-back against the Chicago Blackhawks at the United Center. And this was, as we've kind of been saying this week, a must-win game because the race in the Central Division is getting incredibly tight with teams like Minnesota and Colorado and even the Winnipeg Jets still to some extent not too far behind the Dallas Stars' tails. And this game especially, even though it's night 2 of a back-to-back, a game that the Stars really going into it knew that they could win because the Blackhawks have basically been stripped of their talent. Jonathan Toews, while he's still a member of the team, is not playing due to health concerns and health reasons. Patrick Kane just made his debut with the New York Rangers. And of course, Max Domi was still a part of the Blackhawks when this game went down, but was being held out due to roster management or whatever the Chicago Blackhawks decided to call it. Kind of a shame that we didn't get to see him get traded before the game and then get to see what that experience would have been like for him to have to walk to the other side of the United Center, be in the Stars locker room. Whether or not he plays would have been up in the air. Would have been a really interesting story, but we didn't get it. Domi was technically still a member of the Blackhawks when this game happened, but some pretty big performances from the Dallas Stars, who outshot the Blackhawks 36-21, won the battle in the faceoff dot, although it was pretty tightly contested. But the big stat is the Stars go 2 for 3 on the power play, thanks in large part to the efforts of Roope Hintz, who recorded goals number 27, 28, and 29 on the season. Roope Hintz will yet again be a 30-goal scorer this season, and it seems like Captain Jamie Benn well on his way to that stat as well, who scored his 25th of the season. Big night for the Dallas Stars offense, especially in the third period where the game was tied 2-2 and 45 seconds into the third frame. Ben gets a goal, and then later on in the period, Esa Lindell and Roope Hintz bury empty netters to give the Stars a big win. And another reason why the offense was so big late down the stretch is because the Stars had a new player on the ice making their NHL debut. Matt Murray was called up from the AHL to back up Jake Ottinger while Scott Wedgwood was kind of dealing with a quote-unquote relapse from his injury that he sustained a little bit ago. Pete DeBoer says that he's not too worried about this injury long-term, but that, Wedge just wasn't quite ready to be fully back in. And it was just kind of a precautionary thing. But this is not the time of year where you want to see Jake Ottinger play in back-to-back games, especially when there is travel involved. And so we speculated on yesterday's episode, will we see Matt Murray make his NHL debut? And sure enough, we saw the first taste of Matt Murray, the Dallas Stars version of Matt Murray at the NHL level. And I was pretty impressed. I mean, it's a small sample size and it's one game against a, let's be honest, pretty bad opponent. But I think you have to be pretty pleased with what you saw from the kid who saved 19 of 21 shots, saved 3 out of 3 power play opportunities. Big time performance from him down the stretch. The defense not always necessarily doing him a ton of favors either at certain points in the game, but he still came up and made some pretty big saves, especially early in the game. The Stars could have found themselves down early in the first few minutes, but Matt Murray kept his head level and played a very strong game to help get the Stars this win on the road and help them give them a little bit of a cushion in the Central Division. And at the time of recording this, the Wild and Canucks game has not gone final. Those teams tied at 1 apiece. But still, a big win, and the Stars really needed this rookie goaltender to step up, a guy who probably wasn't expecting to make his NHL debut this season. But what a time to do it, and what a moment for the kid to step up and help his club get 2 big points on the road. Don't really know how much more of him we'll see this season, if any at all. For all I know, Scott Wedgwood could be fine, and he could be coming back to his backup roles on Saturday when the Avalanche come to town. But the Stars finally seem to be getting back to their style of play. Of course, not a clean or perfect game, which you don't really expect that night 2 of a back-to-back. And the Blackhawks certainly took the advantage of some opportunities that they were given. Pretty good game from Seth Jones, who gets his 7th goal of the season. But all in all, the Stars found a way to win, which at this juncture in the season, anytime you can get 2 points in regulation, you absolutely take it. And now the Stars are back in Dallas. They're getting a little bit of time off, and then they have a big tilt coming up on Saturday when the Avalanche come to town. And that's a huge game in terms of division standings and just, the morale of both of these teams moving forward as we head to the final stretch of the season. Well, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk about the newest trade in the world of Dallas Stars hockey. We'll talk about the Max Domi deal and what it means for this team going forward. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at Built Bar. Are you looking for a delicious treat but don't want all the fat and calories? Then you've got to try Built Bar. What makes Built Bar taste so good? Well, for starters, they're covered in 100% real chocolate. That's right, real chocolate. And they come in unbelievably delicious flavors like churro, peanut butter brownie, coconut almond, and so many more. And I'm not quite sure how Built does it, but somehow they get their bars to taste like a candy bar while maintaining amazing macros. And what's even better is that they're actually good for you. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, and a whopping 17 grams of protein. And now you don't need to wait to get your own box. For years, we've been telling you to go visit Built.com to get your Built bars, but now you can get them at your local Walmart or Sam's Club. That's right. Head to your nearest Walmart today or walk to the pharmacy section and grab yourself a box of Built bars. You can pick up a 4-bar box of cookies and cream or double chocolate or the coconut puffs. No matter how you get your hands on a Built bar, be sure to find a way to get some. They're absolutely delicious and you won't regret it. Thank you again for making the Locked On Stars podcast your first listen of the day. And the Dallas Stars have made another move like we expected they would. They go out and get Evgeny Dadonov on Sunday, which I didn't really even mention him in the game. He picks up an assist on Jamie Benn's goal. He now has 3 points in his first 3 games in a Dallas Stars sweater, which is pretty impressive and seems like the Stars have found one of their guys at the deadline who is going to contribute to this team, not just down the stretch in the regular season, but a guy who is hungry to get some more time in the postseason. I really like this Evgeny Dadonov pickup, and I think I'm really going to like this Max Domi pickup as well. Many of you have been listening for quite some time. You know I've been pushing and pushing for this deal to happen to quite some time, and I can't fully take credit, but not to brag on myself too much, I did wish him a happy birthday yesterday when I noticed mid-recording that his birthday was March 2nd. Made sure to tweet at him on his birthday, and not going to say that I'm the one who made the trade happen. I don't know. You tell me. It seems a little bit coincidental, maybe a little too good to be true. But Max Domi is going to be a Dallas Star, so it seems, again, throwing the trade up, or at least the details of the trade There's cap complications, things like that, that made the trade take a little bit longer to become official. But Max Domi and AHL goalie Dylan Wells coming to Dallas in exchange for a Stars second-round pick and Anton Khudobin going back to the Chicago organization. And we've talked about Max Domi at length over the past month or so and what he can provide for this team. We've talked about the Stars' need for depth scoring and guys that can play out at the wing position, whether that's with Ben and Johnston, whether that's with Sagan and Marchment. And it seems like we found our guy in Dodonov to play with Ben and Wyatt Johnston. But now there was the question of, okay, do we need depth defensemen? Do we need a guy who can play along Tyler Sagan? And the Stars seem to have found the guy that they wanted. I think they probably would have liked to add a defenseman. And technically, at the time of recording this, they still very much could look to do that. But I think the Stars also realized that in order to win in the playoffs, you need good goaltending. They have that good goaltending, but they do need that depth scoring as well. Guys that play with a little bit of an edge and can bring some high intensity, high energy to a playoff situation and even down the stretch in the regular season during some of these meaningful games. And Max Domi certainly has risen to the occasion several times for the Blackhawks this season. 18 goals, 31 assists, 49 points in total in 60 games played this season, 18 power play points, 8 power play goals, and a very impressive 53.74% success rate in face-off percentage. So this guy can do a little bit of everything for the Stars on the offensive end. Doesn't necessarily pack the biggest amount of size, but I think, while he might not be the perfect two-way defensive forward, I think that he still has plenty to offer this team. And hopefully the offense is good enough and the defensemen can do their job around the crease. And then, of course, you get the additions of guys like Kiviranta and Luke Glendening back into the lineup. And I think that squares some things up in terms of the defensive forwards that can slot in and play alongside Radek Faksa on that fourth line. But Max Domi, really nice pickup for the Dallas Stars. A guy, again, plays with a ton of energy, ton of grit, sometimes has some discipline issues here and there, but I think that the Stars need that at times. I think there's stretches where they can get pushed around a little bit and bullied a little bit by other teams. And while it's nice to have a guy like Jamie Benn who can bite back a little bit, I think Max Domi can wear that cap as well on the ice. He's not going to be able or afraid to back down to anyone while he's out there playing for this team. And I think it'll be nice to see him alongside guys like Sagan, like Ben, some other guys that play with a little bit of an edge to their game. And it's not just Max Domi coming to Dallas. We're also getting AHL goaltender Dylan Wells, who has spent the majority of his season with the Rockford Ice Hogs. 17 games played in the American Hockey League this season with a 2.96 goals against average and a .905 save percentage. Not the craziest numbers, but I mean, the Stars are not necessarily in need of a great goaltender for the NHL level right now. This is really just kind of a replacement, if you will, for Anton Khudobin. Again, I'm anticipating Matt Murray heading back to the American Hockey League relatively soon. It'll kind of be his show, I imagine, from here on out for the rest of the season. And then you can have Dylan Wells there as well. And if he ends up being a nice goalie piece for the Stars that either plays for the organization or becomes a trade piece later on down the road, so be it. But I guess happy to have him as some depth for the team, but really happy to have Max Domi, who I think is going to come in and provide even more of a spark for this team, just like we've seen Evgeny Dodonov do. And it's just going to be another building block in what's already kind of being the Stars getting back on track, playing the style of hockey that we know that they can play. Not necessarily always pretty at this point, but again, what do you expect in a back-to-back sequence, especially with some crazy travel from Dallas to Chicago? But really, really impressive stuff from the Stars. And I think the addition of Max Domi is going to do wonders for this team in terms of goal scoring, facilitating on that second line in the faceoff dot, and of course, just bringing that energy and edge to the lineup that sometimes the Stars just feel like they're missing. And it's going to pay huge dividends for this team as they look to win the division and potentially win the Western Conference in the regular season. And then having guys like Domi on your lineup, I think is a very nice add once the playoffs roll around. We're going to take one more quick break, but when we come back, we'll talk a little bit about Anton Khudobin and him leaving the Dallas Stars organization. Maybe not necessarily the best or happiest ending for Anton Khudobin, but we definitely have to talk about it. More on that right after this. Today's episode of Locked On Stars is brought to you by our friends at Indeed. No matter how the last game went, anytime you take the field, you've got a shot at greatness. Give your team the best shot at winning by recruiting more MVPs with Indeed. If you're hiring, you need Indeed, because Indeed is the hiring partner where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is the only job site where you get guaranteed to find quality applicants that meet your must-have requirements, or else you don't pay. Indeed partners with you on every step of the hiring process. Find great talent through time-saving tools like Indeed Instant Match, assessments, and virtual interviews. With Instant Match, as soon as you sponsor a post, you get a short list of quality candidates with resumes on Indeed that match your job description, and you can invite them to apply right away. Plus, you only pay for quality applications that meet your must-have requirements. Start hiring right now with a $75 sponsored job credit to upgrade your job post at Indeed.com/locked-on. Offer valid through March 31st. Go to Indeed.com/locked-on to claim your $75 credit before March 31st. Indeed.com/locked-on. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire? You need Indeed. All right, everybody, we're closing out today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you again for tuning in and bearing with me, even with the weird background. If you're watching on YouTube, you can tell that I am in the business center of a Hilton Garden Inn hotel. But still, like I said, the show must go on. We got a lot to talk about with the Stars win in Chicago on Thursday night. The Stars acquiring Max Domi via trade. But with that trade comes the departure of a fan favorite in the Stars organization, Anton Khudobin. We haven't really seen Dobby play at the NHL level in quite some time. He's been injured, and then when he's been healthy recently, he's been relegated to the American Hockey League. But just like Denis Gurianov, this man was a hero for the franchise, for the city of Dallas back in the 2020 season. One of the better playoff goalie performances we've seen in recent memory, at least in terms of longevity as well, not just from a single series perspective. We all know how great Jake Ottinger was in those last year's playoffs. Ben Bishop was very, very good in the 2019 playoffs. But Anton Khudobin not just, played in the playoff, played in some of those round robin games leading up to the postseason, and then was a huge reason why the Stars got as deep as they did during that playoff run. And I know so many people are sad to see him go and sad to see him, kind of get what feels like just an unfair exit from Dallas and from the organization, and maybe even just from the NHL. I don't really know what Khudobin's future looks like because his contract expires at the end of this season. He's in his mid to late 30s. He's getting up there in age. He's had a pretty decent season at the American Hockey League level, but how much does he really have to offer left in his career for a National Hockey League club? I don't really see him being a starter anywhere, a guy that a team is going to heavily rely on in order to get them into the postseason. He might find a backup role somewhere here for the next few seasons. I hope he's able to find something that he enjoys in a place that he wants to be, that makes him happy, and a place where he can just be at peace, because I really do think that that's what he deserves. And I wish that his ending in Dallas could have been a little bit more fitting and heroic in some way, but sometimes that's just how sports work. Life isn't always fair or just, or give us what we think we deserve or what the players we love deserve. But I mean, this is a pretty good return for a player in Max Domi, who I think is going to help the Stars a ton, and not just this season. I think Max Domi could very well be not just a rental, but a guy that could be a part of this team for the next few seasons. I'd be curious to see how he performs in a green sweater with the Stars, and see if Jim Nill and company are interested in extending him beyond this season. And I think if he plays the way we expect him to, that would not surprise me at all. And so to get that for, a goalie who, let's face it, I mean, it sounds rude, but not really useful to the organization anymore, and a second round pick, not really too bad. And I have not seen any specifics on what year this second round pick is for, whether that's the 2023 draft, which would leave the Stars without a first, second, or third round pick in that draft, or if it is a second round pick later on down the line. Haven't seen specifics on that, but I think it's worth it. I mean, we've seen plenty of other teams around the NHL add depth to their roster. We all know that the Eastern Conference is going to be a bloodbath come playoff time, but even teams out west have made moves and made themselves better, and the Stars needed to do something to match it. And Evgeny Dodonov was a great first step, but we all knew that that wasn't going to be the only piece that would get the Stars to where they need to be. And while this team certainly still isn't perfect, they're still going to have to overcome some adversity at times. This team is much better if they have Dodonov and Max Domi in the lineup. I think both of those guys have a ton to offer, and Domi especially, I think, has plenty of upside where Dodonov has obviously come in and done great on the 5-on-5 on the power play, but I think Domi could probably slot into some of those roles as well. and you consider him in the faceoff dot two alongside guys like Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, Luke Glendening, Roddick Foxa, White. I mean, we've talked about the Stars' faceoff abilities before. They're one of the best teams in the faceoff circle, and those are going to be crucial moments in the Stanley Cup playoffs. Late in games, the Stars, get a late puck drop in their offensive zone. They're down a goal or the game's tied, and they need to find a way to score. You add another guy to that mix who can help win a draw and help get the offense set up in their zone and get a shot off. And sometimes Max Domi, as we saw, not last night when the Stars and Blackhawks played, but when they played previously in Dallas, we know that he can get the job done scoring. Obviously, he was playing with Patrick Kane a lot on that line, but I think as we've seen from Tyler Seguin, he has plenty left to offer, and I think he and Seguin could build some really nice chemistry together and make some pretty flashy plays. And also, if he could find a way to get Mason Marchment's game going, I don't think Stars fans anywhere would complain about that, as we are still waiting for Mason Marchment to score his first goal since mid-December. But let me know in the comments down below what you think about the Max Domi trade. Did the Stars give away too much? Do you think it's just right? Do you still think that they're going to make another move before the deadline officially hits at 3 p.m. Eastern time today? Well, that's going to do it for today's episode of Locked On Stars. Thank you so much again for tuning in and making us your first listen of the day. Subscribe to the show on YouTube. Follow us on your favorite podcasting platform. Find us on social media as well at Locked On Stars, Instagram and Twitter, as well as my personal Twitter account at Dane_Lewis. We'll be back here on Monday talking a little bit about Stars Avalanche and, of course, just giving some thoughts on where the team stands after the trade deadline, heading into the final 20-ish games or so to close out the season. But I hope you guys have a great Friday. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll see you back here on Monday.